Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We're back with your favorite podcast, Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze. Oh, my.
The boss.
There he is.
All right, Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze. Oh, my. We only have a few minutes for you guys today because Boss Man Cage, you guys can't see him because we don't do video, is all dolled up in a suit and tie. He's got a fresh haircut with a line down the middle of his head. That's apparently the style in New York, but he looks like he's ready to make some deals, you know? He could be on Wall Street. You could have borrowed Wolf.
Got to do this episode before starting the workday. So, it's nice. We do it nice and early and maybe try to give a little baseball predictions and release it for these guys before baseball starts.
I love it. First game. Cheaters versus the Twins. Sorry. Astros versus the Twins. I apologize.
Listen, let's talk about, just generally speaking, what some of the craziness is in this series and how it impacts some of the teams, right? So couple crazy things just to talk about from a general perspective, right? Timing on this. If you're a baseball fan, you're used to a little bit more of a spread out playoffs. In here, what we have is let's call it the wild card round. It's 3 games in 3 days. There is the most March Madness type of feel to this type of stuff that you're ever going to get. Tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, it's 8 games just overlapping, just nonstop baseball being played. But it's 3 games in 3 days. The division series used to be 5 games played in 7 days. It's 5 and 5. The championship series is 7 games in 7 days. It used to be in 7. It used to be in 9. So, and obviously the World Series is the same type of format, right? There's days off between game 2 and 5. But think about that, right? So let's talk about like who it favors, who it doesn't favor, you name it. Because last year the Nationals were able to win basically on the back of their pitchers. And if you think about it, they used basically 6 pitchers. You talk about Strasburg, you talk about Scherzer, you talk about Corbin, and they added in Anibal Sanchez, Sean Doolittle, and Daniel Hudson. That's it, right? Basically, those 6 pitchers accounted for more than 80% of the innings that they threw in the postseason compared to what they threw in the regular season, which was less than 60%, right? So a team is able to kind of do that in the postseason and lean on their stronger arms. And while a lot of people are picking like the Dodgers, with Kershaw and their arms, or the heavy pitching guys, is because in traditional postseasons, you're able to lean on your ace. They can go on short rest. You're able to lean on your bullpen. They can come in and pitch more because, look, they'll rest in the offseason. I don't think you're going to be able to do that in this type of season where pitchers who were normally account for high 50s or low 60% can now ramp up their usage to over 80, 83%, I think, is what I read for the Nationals. It's going to be interesting, right? I mean, without those extra days off, you're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to do that with the pitchers. I mean, it depends on how managers do it. Are they going to try to load up on innings from their best pitchers? Does that mean you're going to have starting pitchers on short rest, relievers appearing multiple days in a row? I read a stat over the last 5 postseason, pitchers have made 41 starts on short rest. Crazy, right? I mean, it's very
short rest is 3 days or less, or
correct,
4 days?
Correct. So they're not on their normal rotation. It's very, very weird, right? I mean, it's just crazy stuff, right? So there's a lot of factors that go into it. I'm excited because, I mean, everybody loves March Madness. Everybody loves that tournament type of play. So who might it help, right? So who might that kind of pitching thing help? And we can go game by game, but I just want to talk about, overarching what my thoughts are, because we're never going to – I don't think that baseball adopts this type of thing again. It works for this year because of the truncated season that we've had, but I don't think it's going to work. Look, some things might be good, and maybe there's an expanded playoffs next year or in 2 years, or maybe it's something that gets worked into the, the collective bargaining, but I don't think they're going to ever really make a 16-team playoff work in baseball because it really just devalues the regular season. Although, in the beginning of this, a 60-game season, a lot of people were saying, well, obviously any good team is going to get in. Well, go over to Queens and talk to the Mets about that, right? Go to Philly and talk to the Phillies about that. These are teams that thought they were going to make the playoffs. And obviously, even though they expanded the playoffs to half the league, those teams with their payrolls were not able to make the playoffs. So, it's an interesting discussion, right? So my thought about that.
I don't know who it favors. I don't know who it favors, and I hope and we're going to touch on that now. but I do expect a ton of comebacks. I expect, I mean, you could learn from the March Madness feel, and baseball has that in general, right? Like you see a lot of wild card teams, win and go all the way to the World Series. So there is the momentum. But I think it's going to be cool. I think it's a real opportunity to find a team that has the momentum and ride it, right?
Oh yeah.
I think it's going to be even like kind of more shrunk, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the Yankees-Cleveland game tonight specifically because that's a huge pitching matchup. But if you want to get into we'll
talk about it. I'm going to talk about the Yankees. It's fun. Obviously, that's my team. So my picks will be skewed because, I'm that idiot who goes with your heart and not your brain. So remember, I'm a Yankee fans, guys. So don't blindly follow me on your bets here.
What's worse than that, though?
Sure.
I like that. Yesterday, I saw a guy. I follow him on Twitter. He's a huge Chiefs homer, huge Chiefs fan. Bet on the Ravens. Who does that? That's a lose-lose.
Well,
that to me is the cardinal sin of gambling.
Maybe he figured he'd hedge. He'd be happy that the Chiefs won, but he lost money. Maybe his hedge was, if I'm going to be mad that my team loses, at least I'll make some money on it.
Okay.
Look, I can see it. I can see it only because, if you're a fan, you allegedly know what's going on with your team. You know if they're overrated, if they're underrated, that kind of stuff. So I can see it, but obviously whatever he saw didn't come true. But so for the baseball stuff, I really think it favors teams that have deep pitching. Not just high-level pitching, but deep pitching. And normally I would tell you that favors the Yankees because their bullpen has always been their strength, but their bullpen has been abysmal this year. It's been horrible. And if they don't find a way to right it, this actually could hurt them. So the three teams I think it helps the most are the Dodgers, who, everybody's picking to win the whole thing. The Dodgers, they have 5 good starting pitchers. You got Kershaw, you got Buehler, you got Tony Gonsolin, who's really come on out of nowhere. Dustin May, Julio Urias. Buehler has the worst ERA of those 5, and it's 3.44. That's just nuts. I mean, it's just literally nuts. Go ahead.
And their batters, their hitting is unbelievable too. And what makes the Dodgers very scary, so I know everyone's picking them, but sometimes everyone is right. They have the pitching, they have the hitting, and they're pissed. They have that chip on their shoulder that they feel cheated.
Yeah,
that's a scary
for a bunch of reasons, right? So they got a great starting pitching. They got one of the best bullpens. Their lineup is stacked with MVPs, top to bottom. They're just a batting lineup. And you're right. Not only do they have the chip to come in with the Dodgers, that the Astros, bang them out of a championship, but even it looks like baseball is trying to screw them because we'll get into this, but this playoff format, it significantly negatively impacted the Dodgers' chances to win here. In the previous wildcard play-in format, 1 seeds normally would have a 40.2% chance to win the World Series. 1 seeds. In this playoff format, the average 1 seed, so you're factoring both the Dodgers and the Rays here, have only a 29.7 chance. So a typical 1 seed from normal playoff down to this new play-in format goes down 10%. Obviously, the number 4 and 5 seeds see their numbers go up a little bit because they're able to avoid that 1-game wild card playoff, right? So, and obviously, 6, 7, and 8 go up a little bit because they wouldn't even be in the playoffs. But for the 2020 Dodgers, their estimates of winning the World Series dropped to 31.6%. Down from an average of what would be 40.2 under the old.
And is that because they have more games to play, more rounds to play? What goes into that number?
Couple reasons. Yeah, so it's more games, it's less rest, there's more teams, which is the bigger one. But for the Dodgers specifically for that number, they don't match historical averages for a top seed because they're projected to face a strong Padres team, not in the first round, but later on if it goes by chalk, right? It's a strong Padres team in the wild card round, and then if it goes by chalk, a strong Braves team in the championship game. But if it's any consolation for Dodger fans, because I want to try to keep this a straight and narrow, I'd consider them a super team, even in a short season. I mean, they just dominated their opponents. I mean, they lost 1 series all year, I think. So the last 3 super teams that we've had run through the playoffs, the 16 Cubs, the 17 Astros, and the 18 Red Sox, they all won the World Series. So, if baseball holds to form and a team that has really ripped through their competition the way that the Dodgers have this year, the last 3 times that's happened in the last 5 years, that team has gone on to win the World Series. But the Dodgers actually find their odds going down significantly because, yeah, it's a tougher gauntlet for them. So it's an interesting thing. I mean, they have a great team, the Dodgers, and it's been, look, what is it, 8 straight NL West titles and nearly a 600 winning percentage. So most people are picking that they're gonna do their thing. But back to the rest.
Yep. Let me just jump in here real quick.
Yeah, please.
Luca Nation asked us, we wish yesterday we could have covered more stoicism with Mr. Adam Lefko.
No,
so I'll add it into here. I'll intertwine it. I'll sew it up for you guys like a nice quilt, okay? So what are the beliefs of Stoicism? Stoicism teaches the development of self-control and fortitude as a means of overcoming destructive emotions. The philosophy holds that becoming a clear and unbiased thinker allows one to understand the universal reason. Now, why do I say that? So it often comes, relax, Cage, stay with me. The reason I bring that up is, stay with me, Cage. I think there's a real need.
Oh, you're still talking. You're still talking about this.
I think there's a real need to want to come up with something original. And I think this is a postseason. You don't have to come up with something original. I think the Dodgers are the play. And it's actually ego oftentimes that tells us we have to be the ones to come up with something. We are the right one. Sometimes it's okay to be a clear and unbiased thinker and realize best team, best pitching, best manager, experience, and a chip on your shoulder. There might just not be anything standing in their way. Just something to say.
I like it.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. 100%. And listen,
you ran into it with the Yankees in the 90s when people were like, they're the best team. They're the best pitching. Yep. They're the best bullpen. Why would they lose?
But a lot of times they did lose, even though they're the best team. It's just what happens. That as any fan of sports will tell you, that's why they play the games. And while I will pick the Dodgers to advance out of the first series against the Brewers, who it's amazing they made the playoffs, I will be rooting like hell for the Brewers to win that series. Because if you're going to take the Dodgers out, it's in a 3-game series. It's in a short series. They lost one series this year to the Rockies, who are below 500 team. So any team can be taken out in a 3-game series.
They lost one series all year?
Yeah, one series.
That's unbelievable.
To the Rockies. That was it.
That's unbelievable.
One series. So who else does it help? Who else does it help besides the Dodgers? It helps the Indians, because even after losing Mike Clevenger, their rotation is still amazing. Shane Bieber is the best pitcher that we've seen in a very long time. Carlos Carrasco, Zach Plesac, they got Aaron Savali. Even the rookie they have, Tristan McKenzie, is awesome. So, you got that type of pitching depth. It doesn't matter. No one really has to go on short depth. And you're right about tonight's game. If Bieber goes out and does what Bieber does, and Cole gives up home runs like he's been giving up all year, and the Yankees go down 1-0 in a 3-game series, and Cole is done, it could be a very short postseason for the Yankees. So it's as big of a game 1 as you're going to get, that pitching duel. I might even consider throwing Tanaka in game 1 if I were the Yankees, and leaving Cole for 2 and trying to steal one tonight. It's an interesting strategy. Obviously I'm not the manager, but I was thinking about that myself. I'm also surprised that Jay Happ is slotted to start any game. So I really hope the Yankees win game 1 and 2. And Happ doesn't have to pitch. But we'll get to happen. We'll get to happen.
Is it a 3-game series, so first team to win 2, right?
Correct. First team to win 2. And I wouldn't want a game 3 deciding my guy out there is Jay Happ and they're throwing, Carrasco or somebody. I mean, in any event, it's an interesting thing. The other team
it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, that's the cool part. The other thing about it come on, it's the first game. It normally would be a wild card game, which usually is exciting too because it's an elimination game. So I don't want to fault that. Baseball does do that, right? I love those elimination games. It basically starts with a game 7. But with 3-game series, every game is kind of like that. So it's really, really cool. So the only other team of the 3, the Dodgers, Indians, I think the Athletics also. Rotation itself, starting rotation is middle of the pack, but they have the best bullpen overall in the regular season. And I think their manager is Bob Melvin, right? He's going to shorten the games. He's not going to use their starters. They're going to go to the bullpen the way the Yankees tried to do in years past. Teams that might hurt, the Braves. So this helps the Dodgers, right? Max Fried, 7-0, 2.25, and rookie Ian Anderson, whose cards I collect because he got the same name as my son, had a 1.95 ERA in 6 starts. I think we gave him as a pick, by the way. So hopefully you guys grabbed some of his cards. Ian Anderson, 1.95 ERA for a rookie. The rest of the rotation, though, was so bad that even with those 2 top-line guys, Max with the 7-0, 2.25, and Ian Anderson with a 1.95 ERA, even with those 2 guys on the top, the Braves still finished with the 3rd worst rotation ERA in the majors. And they were the only team in the bottom 12 in the league in ERA that made the playoffs. Pitching is what's going to win for you. If the Braves have one weak spot, it's their pitching that besides their top two. Normally I'd say top two is enough to get you through the playoffs, but not this year, not with no rest. So that, if you're a Braves fan, the change to the playoff schedule really will impact you. Yankees as well, rotation, significant concerns. Garrett Cole, Tanaka, and Happ are who they're throwing out there. I'd throw Davey Garcia in there. I know he's only pitched like 4 games in his career, but he looked really good.
Right.
It's tough to trust a kid that young with no experience in the playoffs, especially in like a do or die type of game. But it's an interesting thing. Also, the Yankees bullpen, which is supposed to be their, they're going to get some COVID and all kinds of stuff. It's supposed to be their strong spot with Chapman and Britton and Ottavino and just all the flamethrowers they have out there. Believe it or not, their Yankees bullpen ranked 22nd in ERA this year, which is just awful. And if you can't count on your bullpen in the playoffs, you might as well just pack it in and go home. Same thing for the Cubs. Yu Darvish was amazing, had almost a historic season to win the Cy Young if it wasn't for Trevor Bauer and his antics and his ridiculously low season ERA. I think he finished like a 1.74 Bauer. But Darvish and Hendricks are a great 1-2 punch at the top of the rotation. But, when was the last time John Lester had a good game? I mean, he's had some old October magic in there, but it's one of those things, right? Hopefully he can dust it off and find something for them because their bullpen is crap. And but beyond there, Yu Darvish and Kyle Hendricks, they really got nothing to throw out there. So those are who the pitching stuff helps. What I love to also see, and like I said, we'll go through these matchup by matchup. I love that there's young teams in here making a splash, right? The Padres haven't been in the playoffs since 2006. The White Sox haven't been in the playoffs since 2008. That's fun, right? But what's more fun is what we were talking about, right? Everybody wants to crap on baseball. We even talked about it in yesterday's episode with Adam Lefko, right? Baseball it's not as marketable. It's not as fun-friendly as basketball is. Or, but come on, you got Tatis. You got Lewis Robert, right? Who, he had a slump, but, he's probably going to win a Gold Glove. You got Eloy Jimenez on that team, Nick Madrigal, you got Tim Anderson. The Padres team, it's a great lineup, top to bottom. Hosmer, who's already won, which is going to be
Let me
key
ask
in that.
you.
God, yeah, please.
Do you think they have enough to make a splash?
Who, the Padres?
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. And here's why, right? Because whoever put that team together, really well done. And if Clevenger is healthy, yes. And I'm going to tell you why, right? Because you have Tatis, right? And Tatis is young, and Tatis is energetic, and he's great. But listen to these names: Eric Hosmer, Manny Machado, Tommy Pham, Mitch Moreland. And you're saying Mitch Moreland, why am I holding him out as a good thing?
Mitch is good, man. He played for the Red Sox.
And one of those, you're 100% right. Every one of those guys that I just named have appeared in multiple postseasons.
Hosmer was with the Kansas City Royals for a long time. And
so you don't underestimate
this team is similar to that Royals team, right? Yep. I know they strike out, and I don't know the whole nuance of batting for average versus home run hitting, but they have that vibe. I remember those Royals teams for 1 or 2 years there had that vibe, that belief. I think belief is a big thing in baseball, right?
I am with you. And that belief also comes from guys like the ones I just named telling them, I've been there. Hosmer telling them, I've won it. Here's what you got to do. Here's you got to stay even keel, not too high, not too low, right? Just, run through it. It's a long postseason. Don't get too down on yourself if you make a bad play, you name it. So the balance of youth there with some real experience, I think gives the Padres, a more of an edge than, say, like the White Sox. And you want to talk about age, right? The youth movement, right? So, the White Sox, 27.6 is their average age, and the Padres, 26.6.
Wow.
But how about this team? 25.9, youngest lineup in the majors, who I love to watch. The Toronto Blue Jays. They got second years, Bichette, Guerrero Jr., Kevin Biggio. They got the youngest lineup in the majors, and they're in the playoffs. It's fun because, look, a lot of people aren't going to talk about this because it's a prediction and picks and the whole 9 yards, right? But it's cool to see that, right? By expanding the playoffs, we're able to see these are names that we've all kind of started collecting in the last couple of years. You get to see Guerrero, and maybe he can have a good postseason and turn around the not-so-great regular season, right? Bo Bichette, carry over his season. Kevin Biggio. I mean, these guys are setting, like, Toronto records for quickest to 100 hits, quickest to 75 hits. They you get to see Eloy Jimenez, and you get to see Lewis Robert, and you get to see, Tatis play in the postseason, and what can they do in that grind? So how about this, right? I don't think I would love the Padres, mix of youth and age, but the last World Series champion with a lineup as young as San Diego or Toronto's was the 1969 Mets. So it doesn't bode well historically for a team that young to run through the gauntlet and be able to put up with the rigors and the pressure of the postseason. That said, there are some teams that do it, with age, and we're talking about percentages here, right? I mean, the Cubs in 16 were only 27.4, which put them around where the White Sox age is. But none of the recent teams, have had average ages anywhere near, what the Toronto or the Padres do. So we'll see, So I love that. I love the March Madness feel to the tournament, right? Because what does it give you? It gives you one last talking point before we go on these is that March Madness feel. Also, why we love it so much is that you get to cheer for an underdog. You get to cheer for a team that just skated in, right? That 10 seed that just made it in on the bubble, right? That bubble team. And bubble teams have made noise, right? So the Nationals last year, if it was a 60-game season, they wouldn't have even made the playoffs. So if they had the same type of season we had this year, if we would have cut last year off at 60 games, that team would not have even made the playoffs the way that season ended. They only won 93 games, which was tied for 8th in the majors. But they beat the 106-win Dodgers and the 107-win Astros on their way to winning a championship. The 2014 Giants, the 5th seed in the NL with 88 wins. A bunch of upsets, and then they only had to beat the 89-win Royals in the World Series. Remember that 2014 series? It was an 88-win team against an 89-win team, right? 2006 Cardinals finished 83-78, the worst record ever for a World Series champ, and just the 13th best record in baseball that season. But in the playoffs, they beat a 97-win Mets team and a 95-win Tigers team. 2003 Marlins, be still my heart. Snuck into the playoffs as a 91-win wildcard team, took down the 100-win Giants, then the Cubs in the LCS, and beat my beloved 101-win Yankees that year. The 87 Twins, 85-77, would have been good for just 5th place in the AL East. They were actually outscored on the season. The only World Series champ that actually scored. So everybody was talking about run differential. The 87 Twins scored less runs than their opponents in the regular season. But when it came to the Metrodome and home field advantage, they beat everybody, and they won the World Series against the Cardinals that year. And I was alive for it and coherent and remember that series. So a lot of fun. But anyway, why do I bring this shit up, right? Why do we got to do that stuff? I bring it up because with this format, you can see even more of that. You can see a team that just snuck in take out one of the top teams. I'll be rooting for the Brewers to take out the Dodgers. Sorry, Dodger fans. But what a storyline that would be, right? And speaking of storylines, how about this one? Droughts in the playoffs. Cleveland hasn't had a World Series since 1948. The Padres have never won a title, neither have the Brewers. The Marlins in the postseason for the first time since that historic 2003 season that I just mentioned. The Rays are a younger franchise, right? They haven't been around that long, but they've never won. It's been at least 30 years for the Reds, A's, and Dodgers. Dodgers last won in 1988. The Twins haven't been to the World Series since 91. The Blue Jays, not since 1993. That's more than half the teams. So, if it's not the Yankees or the Red Sox, well, the Red Sox aren't in it. It's not one of those teams. Somebody could break a drought. Clayton Kershaw. Since the expanded playoff format started in 1995, only 13 position players and 5 pitchers have accrued more WAR than Kershaw. I mean, you're talking historic numbers. You're talking about Hall of Fame.
I made a living. I made a living betting against Kershaw in the postseason. Just saying.
Every pitcher that has more WAR than him since that time won a World Series. And of the position players with more WAR than him, only Barry Bonds, Adrian Beltre, Mike Trout, and Jim Thome never won a title, or haven't won yet in Trout's case because he's still playing. So yeah, he's one of the greatest players in the last 25 years, and some people would say he's due, right?
So drop some takes for us. Give us some hot takes. We're not going to hold you accountable. Baseball's crazy. We all know that. Give us some fucking hot takes. Give us some outlandish scenarios. Give us something that might be more realistic. Let us know. I think the Dodgers are going to win, but I think the Padres can make a splash. Those are my 2 predictions.
I like that too. I'll go game by game. I think the Padres are definitely good, right? So the one other thing I want to mention that's going to happen that hasn't happened in many, many playoffs, right? So something hasn't happened for a team since the second game of the 2004 ALDS. You know what that is? The Padres haven't had a postseason win. Not the Padres, the Twins, excuse me. They are 0-16 in the postseason since the second game of the 2004 ALDS. Now, a little side note, little tidbit on this one is 13 of those losses come against the Yankees. So they have to be more happy than anybody in the world to not see the Yankees in the playoffs, first round. I mean, for a while there, a week ago, it looked like they were slotting to be the 4 and 5 seeds, right? But I think that I think our friends, the Twins, are going to find a way to win here. I mean, they're playing against the Astros, right? So I would say they're favored in that series. Not only win a game, but I think they hopefully get out of that series. So let's go. Let's go.
How do
Let's
you
go game by game. Go ahead.
So this is what I kind of don't get about baseball. So if you look at the line, right? The Twins are minus 165 against the Astros. Who won last year? The Astros. Look at their lineup. It's the exact same lineup. Springer, Altuve, Brantley, Bregman.
So
Tucker.
I was not planning on doing this, but if you give me 30 seconds, I will look through it was a stat that I found last night because really I'm not looking at the Astros, but how about this? You ready? The Astros in 17 versus the Astros in 2020. I'm going to read you two numbers. The first number is what that guy batted in 17. The second number is what they batted in 2020 after the garbage pails were taken out of their locker room. Okay, you ready?
Oh.
So 17 versus 20. Altuve in 17, 346. In 20, 219. Correa in 17, 315. In 2020, 264.
Ooh.
Bregman in 17, 284. In 2020, 242. Gurriel in 2017, 299. Gurriel in 2020, 232. Springer, 283 in 17. Springer, 269. Reddick, 314 in 17. Reddick in 2020, 245. That's not a lineup that scares me without garbage pails. I'm sorry, pal.
Wow.
So anyway,
that's a bomb right there. They're going to miss that play, though, right? It's 1:30 and the game starts at 2. So that sounds like the Twins are a play.
Well, listen, let's wrap this stuff up then and get this out there. This way people can fast forward and start listening to this. But yeah, I mean, I played the Twins. The Twins are going to win. So here's my way of doing this, right? Because I found a cool article on ESPN where they brought in 30 of their MLB experts from ESPN.com and TV and stats and information and wherever they have them. And they basically asked for each one of those series, who's going to win the series. So basically 30 is the most votes you can get, and 0 is the least votes you can get. And that will tell you where they're leaning, right? So for example, in the number 8 Milwaukee Brewers and number 1 Los Angeles Dodgers, all 30 people have the Dodgers advancing. All 30 have the Dodgers advancing, right? So that I would be shocked if that didn't happen, but I'm going to tell you guys something. Besides for the Twins, I'll be rooting the hardest for the Brewers because I think that the Dodgers, if they don't get knocked out in the first round, it just gets easier for them. Not that their matchups are easier, but it just gets easier for them because of their pitching and their depth. I think, if you're going to take them out, the first round's the way to do it. I just don't think the Brewers have, what it takes there. That's akin to like a 16 versus a 1 seed in the NCAAs. Number 7 Reds and number 2 Braves. Now here's something that's very, very interesting, right? And this should tell you, this is ESPN and, they're whoever 30 of their experts. Even though the Reds are a 7 seed and the Braves are a 2 seed, with front runner Freddie Freeman on the team, 16 people pick the Reds and 14 Braves. So that one, they're viewing it as sort of like a toss-up series, and they're giving the Reds kind of an advantage. And why do you think that is, man?
Trevor Bauer.
100% correct. 100% correct. Everybody just thinks Bauer's going to go out there and take game 1. Then it's going to be it. I mean, the Braves are not going to win 2. They don't have the depth for it. They don't have the pitching depth for it. They're going to burn, Fried in the first game. And I kind of like that. I kind of think the Reds are going to do enough to take the Braves out, which just makes it easier for the Brewers. So number 6 Marlins at number 3 Chicago Cubs. Let's hear it for the Marlins, man. I mean, I think they were trying to tank for Tua, but yes, that was a joke. But despite the fact that Derek Jeter wanted to give his whole team away for the last however many years, they still managed to make the playoffs. It's laughable that he considers it a stepping stone. It's not really a stepping stone. It's just a matter of luck and a bunch of other teams being really crappy. But the ESPN experts, 10 of them actually picked the Marlins to beat the Cubs. Now, I'm no Cubs fan, but I don't want them to lose here. And here's why. Here's my big reason why, right? One of the crazy things that we didn't talk about in the last round of this, the crazy stuff we're going to see, it's neutral sites. So if my Yankees don't win the World Series, I really want to see the White Sox against the Cubs at a neutral site, because that would just be the funniest thing in the world. A World Series between 2 Chicago teams being played in Texas. Talk about that. Talk about how absurd that would be. Anyway, so just a little. I've been accused of going off on tangents, but I figured that was a funny one, right? You could have both of those teams, and trying the White Sox trying to win for the first time in a while, and the fans not be able to see it and watching it in Texas. Pretty crazy. But I think here the Cubs do enough. I think they're a pretty weak lineup, and we talked about how the top of their rotation does enough in this series. I think they have two really great frontline starters. It's going to be too much for the Marlins. I think it might get a little tougher for them as they move beyond that, though. And then the last one is the Padres against the Cardinals. That's a 4-5 matchup, but it's 27-3 Padres to Cardinals, what the ESPN analysts and folks did. I agree with that. I think the Padres definitely have enough to take out the Cardinals there. Same analysis going in the American League Wildcard Series. The Rays against the Blue Jays. It's 29-1 for the Rays. Now I tried to do a bunch of research for this, right? I have seen probably 100 predictions, brackets, whatever it is, from different pundits, you name it. And every single one of them that I've seen, barring like 6 of them, so 90-something% are Dodgers Rays, just straight chalk the whole way. 1 versus 1. These are the two best teams. It's going to be Rays against the Dodgers. I do not think the Rays are making the World Series. I will tell you that right now. I don't think they have the experience to do it. I mean, they're a nice team with some depth, but they were able to stay pretty healthy during the short season. They were able to play some crappy teams, and I don't think they're as good as their record, and I don't think they have what it takes to run the gauntlet of the postseason. I don't think that Toronto has enough to knock them off in the first round, though. I think we are going to see that Yankees versus Rays series, and literally everyone is picking. I think Kevin Millar, I saw him on the MLB Network, picked the Yankees to take out the Rays and then lose to the Dodgers. So, pretty chalk there too. But, I mean, the Rays will probably have enough to take out the Blue Jays. I wouldn't be surprised that one person picked the Blue Jays. I wouldn't be surprised if the Blue Jays have enough to take them out, enough offense to take them out in a short series. But this one here, if you pick it, you got to go Rays. Number 7, White Sox, and the number 2, Athletics. The picks were A's 19, White Sox 11. So, again, it's funny, right? That 7-2 in the National League was the interesting one. That 7-2 in the American League is interesting too, because I think the White Sox are a pretty good 7 seed. I mean, that American League Central was an interesting thing there, right? I think I'm gonna disagree with this one, and I think I have the White Sox actually beating the Athletics here. I think I'm in the minority on this one, and I think that. I think the White Sox do enough. I think their lineup, is strong enough. I think Giolito is going to have a really great game against the A's, and I think this is one where the White Sox wins. I think the ESPN analysts are wrong on this one. They're not wrong.
You've been pretty sharp with the White Sox too. By the way, you've been calling Abreu playing well. So I would tell you. I'll tell you on that.
They are scary if they all are playing well at the same time. The problem that they've had is that lineup was never, all good at the same time. Moncada was dealing with, COVID side effects. Tim Anderson got a little cold towards the end when he got into that batting title race against the machine, DJ LeMahieu. But Abreu's just been hot the whole time. Eloy was good. Lewis Robert was hot, then cold. So if those guys all kind of catch at the same time and their pitching does what their pitching is able to do, it's going to be interesting. The Twins are going to take out the Astros. The ESPN folks have it 21-9. The Twins are going to win this series. At least that's what I think. And then in the 5 versus 4, the Yankees 5, Cleveland Indians 4, this is one of the more lopsided numbers they have here. Besides the Dodgers at 30 and the Rays at 29, this is the most lopsided one they have, right? The Cubs were 2010. This is also 2010. So you're thinking, all right, well, it's East Coast bias. I mean, obviously they're going 20-10. They think the Yankees are going to take out the Indians. It's not. They have 20 Cleveland, 10 Yankees. So they're basically saying that, the Indians with their pitching and Bieber and the whole deal in a short series like this, that it's going to be too much for the Yankees. And I disagree. Got to go with the heart here. I'm sorry, guys, but I think the Yankees have enough offense here. Their record's a lot better than it was. They had 9 games without LeMahieu, and they lost all 9 of them. Everybody's healthy. That team kind of did a LeBron James, I think, and they kind of played at 60% because they knew they were going to get into the playoffs. They knew they were going to be there.
They started the year. They were so hot in the start, and then they were just injury bug after injury bug.
Yep.
And you're saying they're all injured?
No, they're all yeah, everybody's healthy.
I apologize. Yep, they're all back?
Everybody back. They're all back.
I love it. Just last 2 questions, if you don't mind, because I want to get this up for the people.
Sure. Yep.
Which lineup scares you the most?
Top to bottom is the Dodgers. Always the Dodgers.
Batting?
Top to bottom Dodgers. Yeah. The
Okay,
batting
which
lineup
pitching
is definitely-
staff? Which pitching staff?
The Dodgers are deepest straight when you talk about like 5 deep as far as starters, and their bullpen is no slouch. Top of the rotation, I like the Cubs. If it's just you're talking about top 2 guys with Darvish and Hendricks, I like the Indians because my friend
Darvish and Hendricks scare you?
Dude, look. First of all, Hendricks is a postseason beast, and he was great this year, and he's been great for many, many years.
Isn't he like an
Darvish-
Ivy Leaguer or like a Northwestern guy or some shit?
Yeah. But Darvish, if it wasn't for the crazy numbers, if it wasn't for the crazy numbers that Bauer put up, Darvish would be winning the Cy Young. They are very
which
good.
Scares you because numbers lie.
That's true. It's true, but Hendricks scares me in the postseason. That guy has done it time and time again. But no, offensive lineup, the lineups that scare me, the Dodgers. I love the Padres lineup, and I love the White Sox lineup. Those are the strongest lineups. Obviously, the Yankees, if they're hitting, no one should want to face them. Pitching, it's really just the Dodgers. The only top line ones is just the Dodgers. If their pitchers are doing what they need to, everybody else has one good guy. Everybody else has one really, really good guy. If they have great at all, no one has like a stellar 2. Like the Nationals last year, they came in with 2 and maybe even Corbin a 3. No one has a Strasburg, Scherzer combo. I mean, there are teams that are close, but nobody has that. That killer 1-2, that shilling Randy Johnson. That no one has that. At least I can't think of somebody that's gonna be able to be run roughshod. The Dodgers are the deepest ones, but
we're looking at. Coming into these tournaments, I think the tensions are going to be running high. You're intense, you're excited, you want to hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm.
But I think veteran experience will really prove itself here because I think baseball is a game of clarity, right? You can't really force the intensity, and I think the guys that are going to come out swinging for the fences, they might be strikeout, where the guys that are a little bit more patient, whether that's the pitchers or the hitters, might have more success. But I don't know. I'm not a baseball guy.
I like it. So division series, really quick. I'll just run through these because obviously, we can talk about these again when they're actually set. But I want to give you the ESPN picks just so that you kind of have a bracket here. NLDS division series number 1, they have 25 Dodgers, Padres 5. I do think it's going to be the Dodgers against the Padres, but I think the Padres are going to beat the Dodgers. I do. I like the youth movement. I like that energy. I like all that fun stuff. I really do think that's what's going to happen. Obviously, because these guys were not settled on the NLDS number 2, 11 people picked the Reds, 9 picked the Braves, 8 picked the Cubs, and 1 have the Marlins going through. It's pretty crazy, right? Atlanta, if they get past the Reds, which is going to be a tough one. I don't know if they get past the Reds, but if they do, remember last year the lineup was a little bit thin after you got through Acuna and Freddie Freeman, and no more Josh Donaldson. But come on now, they added Ozuna, who led the National League in home runs this year. Their rotation is going to be the biggest problem, right? That's going to be their rotation problem. It's an interesting thing. I could see any of those teams doing it, but to me, whoever wins that Dodgers-Padres, that's the team that advances to the World Series. And I have the Padres going. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, everybody's picking the Dodgers. It would be no fun to pick the Dodgers. So half of this is, a heart and like you said in the beginning, go against. I mean, everybody in the world should be picking the Dodgers because they're just that talented. But what fun is that? The ALDS, the folks who picked have the Rays 19, the Indians 11, and the Yankees 2. So it's amazing. The Yankees got no love in the first round, but I guess those that thought the Yankees were going to come through are picking the Yankees there. On ALDS number 2, the Twins 13, the A's 8, the White Sox 6, the Astros 3. So the ESPN analysts have the Twins going from not winning a playoff game since 2004 to going straight through here. The Indians are a tough first matchup for the Yankees, and if they get through, I think that they're a solid team. There was a little bit in mid-September where they basically just stopped playing. I don't know what the hell happened. They lost, I don't know if it was 6, 7, maybe even 8 games in a row. But for the majority of the season, they were as good as it got in the American League. Definitely as good as the Rays. And I think they have the best pitching staff, top. The bullpen, maybe not. They lost Clevenger. I mean, they're right up there with the Dodgers in pitching staff. That's no fun, right? Because now you talk about the Rays who have good pitching and Cleveland has good pitching. Nobody wants to see low-scoring games in the postseason, but it's there, especially because that's normally what happens. But I got to tell you, if I'm being asked, I got the Yankees coming out of the American League. I don't care. I'm going with, like you said, some experience on the American League side and some youth on the National League side. So championship series, 24 Dodgers, 3 Padres, 2 Reds, 1 Braves. I don't know. I'm going with the Padres. If you ask me why, even though they had a rough end to the season, I hope that their pitchers come back. All of this is dependent on they have LeMay and Mike Clevenger. They're both a little dinged up. If they're in there, we should be that team should be fine. Zach Davies pitched really good. Chris Paddock can give him some innings. Relievers both had strong seasons, Pomeranz and Rosenthal. It's going to be crazy, right? I mean, that best of 3 is going to be interesting, but I like the Padres. I like the Padres to come out. And the championship series, I'm picking the Yankees. And if the Yankees happen to get knocked out, I'm going to go with the White Sox. I'll give you my little bonus play here. If the Yankees happen to get knocked out by Cleveland or whoever it is, I go with the White Sox, right? Because they're not really a 7 seed. It's like a misnomer here. It's like a mistake to give them a 7 seed, right? But we talked about all their guys. I even forgot to mention my son's favorite player on that team, Edwin Encarnacion, who basically hits bombs, unless he was playing for the Yankees in the postseason last year, and he was horrible. But I mean, Giolito and Keuchel, this is why they got Keuchel, right? That's a great 1-2 punch. And who's this kid? Garrett, I don't know, it's Crochet, right? The 2020 draft pick, who I think half his pitches were 100 miles an hour or more. So listen, I got the Yankees beating the Padres in the World Series. I don't think the fields expand that much. If it's not the Yankees and the Padres, you got the Dodgers and the White Sox. I think those are your 4, four guys that are there. The Dodgers are chalk, right? I mean, they're a great team, obviously, right? When Bellinger, Muncy, and Jock Peterson have the horrible years that they had, and they struggled for most of the season, and yet they basically still won every game. I mean, come on, what does that tell you? I mean, they're the class of the league right now. They're the team to beat. But I just hope somebody can beat them. What else you got?
Nothing. Baseball bores me.
It really is a funny thing. I've heard that from a lot of people. Can I ask you something? And let me ask the listeners as well. Give this week a chance with baseball, right? Because baseball, I don't know whether or not this is going to stick around, and I hope that baseball does take some of this stuff from this. It's nice to have a little chaos in there. You're a book reader, right? A little chaos theory, right? It's nice to have a little chaos. It's nice to have a little bit of who knows what's going to happen. It sucks to go into the season and say the Dodgers are going to win. Just write it down and pencil it in. Because why bother watching? Baseball, for the first time in a long time, they're giving you 2 things to watch with this postseason. One, a youth movement with some exciting players. I mean, Ronald Acuna, you have Fernando Tatis, Luis Robert. You got all these young, talented guys. That Dodger team, they look like they're having fun playing. I mean, Mookie Betts, that's a smiley guy out there, So in any event, you got that youth movement, but also this crazy March Madness feel that we're going to have. Just give it a try. I don't think you'll be bored by baseball this week.
You want me to give them the $1 million tip?
Sure, go for it.
Where really all the value is? This is it right here. If you listen to the end here, this is it. If you're betting on the games, right here is what you need to listen for. Flat bet. Make sure to flat bet. Make sure to flat bet. And what that means is always have the same risk amount. That's your only chance of winning in this. Only chance, in my opinion, is to flat bet.
All right. And if you were to flat bet on a couple of these games, where are you putting your money, hypothetically?
Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're betting Minnesota versus the Astros. What I mean by flat bet is flat bet at the risk. So don't bet like 500 to win 500 and then you're risking 750. Set your risk amount and keep your risk amount the exact same for every game, because baseball's so unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. And your goal should be, at the end of the day, to be 60%. Now, who do I think is going to win? I have no freaking clue.
So I think some of the winners are going to be some of those youngsters that might have had a cool offseason.
But that's an important tip. Money management is super important. Whereas like NBA, you could find kind of nuances or spots to lay down the hammer. Or NFL, there's spots where you can lay down the hammer. I don't think baseball you could predict that well. I found more success with money management.
Which is why I like baseball cards as the betting So I think if you have seen Lewis Roberts' cards come down a little bit because he cooled off at the end of the year, he might not win the Rookie of the Year. Don't do what I did in 1989 and sell all your Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck cards for Jerome Walton because Jerome Walton won the Rookie of the Year. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Listen to Cage. Don't trade Ken Griffey Jr. for
Instead, go in there and I was, it's a different league. Walton was for the Cubs, but that's what I did. I think was maybe a Baltimore pitcher was named Olsen. Maybe was the Rookie of the Year.
So do you think Tatis or Robert or Acuna cards go up if they advance?
Right now, yes, and if they do something good. So like Tatis's cards have come down significantly because he's not winning the MVP most likely. Although I still think I would give it to him because I definitely would. Come on, he's one home run behind Ozuna. He's got more home runs than Freeman and the same amount of runs. Yes, his batting average is worse than those two guys, but he's more steals. He's more valuable to his team, right? If you take Tatis off his team, the team is probably not in the playoffs. You take Freddie Freeman off his team, you still got 4 guys who had good years. I don't even know if he's the MVP of his team. Plus, he didn't play part of the season. And take the batting average out, which, base percentage is obviously a big stat. But besides that, come on. I mean, Tatis was all around. He had the same amount of runs, brought some excitement to a young team, made them relevant for the entire year.
He's also really good on defense, right?
Yeah, only 2 errors, I think, for the entire year. And the steals, man, he led all those guys in steals also. I mean, run creation, you name it. So, he was definitely the player of the year for the first half. He slumped, but he picked it up, had a couple home runs in the last weekend. Just, it depends how you vote for the MVP, and you never know what's going to show up, right? Is it going to be the best player on the best team? Is it going to be, the best player on any team? Is it the best player in the league? You just never know how it's going to show up and who's going to vote where.
When did they announce that?
They announce all the awards overtime during the playoffs, which is going to be a little different this year because of the television schedule and how they do it. But, just like basketball where they make like a staggered announcement, they'll do the same thing. But I don't think you need him to win the MVP. And I was looking at, by the way, beginning odds and predictions. I didn't see a single person. I went back to the beginning of the season. I didn't see a single person predict Tatis to have a single vote in the MVP race. So he's already outperformed. So the fact that his cards are coming down a little bit it's kind of silly. And wait, if he knocks the Dodgers out and has a couple home runs in that series, the cards will go right back up, just like it happened with Juan Soto last year. Thank you for spending some time with us on another episode of the Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze Oh My podcast. Do us a favor and like, subscribe. You know what? Don't just like and subscribe. Everybody does that. If you like us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell everybody. And we hope you got something from spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.